when I went to bed at night, I never actually felt like I was fulfilling any type of purpose. It was all about maximizing the latest growth hack. For as long as that window was open, you get paid in direct proportion to the value and impact that you create in others. How can you make the biggest impact possible? When you get your message right, it actually becomes more of a message market match. Every time you have that challenge, why could this be the best thing in the world to happen for me right now? Authenticity.
Today with me is Charles Gaudet. The real pronunciation would be Gaudet, so I'm very proud of myself that I actually can say that. And you are from Predictable Profits. I'm going to just throw it right at you. You are an internet marketer. You are what I talk about on this show all the time as people that came up with these horrible things that now we try to free ourselves from. What do you have to say for yourself?
I actually, I wouldn't call myself an internet marketer, actually. I started that way way back when as internet marketer. But the reality is we do business that goes far beyond just the internet. And so many internet marketers are busy chasing different tactics and chasing the next shiny penny and all that other jazz. And ultimately, what we discovered is you get paid in direct proportion to the value that you provide others. And if you make that your core focus, that you get paid in direct proportion to the value and impact that you create in others, and that becomes the real purpose, and you continually ask yourselves, what is the best way for me to do that? Then, that's kind of sets the direction for the company. And back in my internet marketing days, it was all about how many leads can we generate. It was all about numbers. It was a very transactional type of experience. You really didn't think about impact. Instead, the difference was all numbers. How much money could I put in my pocket? And all that really ultimately has changed. Now we measure it in the form of results. And how big can we create the results for my clients and make an impact that way? And so, I look at myself more so as a guide, a mentor. Dare I say coach, but even still, I almost feel like that has a little bit of a typecast like internet marketer. Yeah, I'm in the trenches with everybody. I think that's kind of makes things different.
Thank you for that. And great answer. Obviously, I want to put you on the spot here for many reasons. And one of them really is, can we maybe spend a minute on it? And you already alluded to this. What went wrong with internet marketing? So you said it was transactional. It was this crazy idea of scale at any cost, no matter what. What happened sort of in the internet marketer world? What went wrong?
Well, for me anyway, it was all short-term thinking. It was all about different sprints. It was all about maximizing the latest growth hack for as long as that window was open. And then when that closed, you went to do something else. And these quick buying frenzies. And when I went to bed at night, I never actually felt like I was fulfilling any type of purpose. That's not really a sustainable way of growing companies. I mean, we even see it. If you focus at growth at all costs, you just see it at a more of a macro scale. 66% of all companies on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list will be disadvantageously sold, tongue twister, shrink in size, or go out of business, right? And so, but when you start thinking more of that on that long term, that's when business becomes a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more predictable, and growth stays. You just, when you have a purpose and can recruit a team that feels like they're doing something that is bigger and better for themselves, life becomes a little bit easier and more enriched in so many different ways.
So when you saw that shift, you said there was an internal component where you didn't feel good about it. What were the other factors? It just didn't work anymore. That didn't make financially no sense because, I'm looking at somebody like Tai Lopez, and, Tai Lopez has been everywhere. And lying through his teeth for, I don't even know how many years. And now he's in a 9-figure lawsuit from the SEC. Yeah, for this. So some of the stuff went really, really, really wrong. How'd you get out of it?
So I've invested a lot in mentors throughout my life. And one of the most meaningful mentors that I met was a guy named Dr. John Demartini. And I over time, I spent about 4 days with Demartini. And he said to me, he goes, "Hey, look, Charlie, I know abundance is a big value and goal of yours. I get that. Understand that if you want to be rich or, make a decent money, you just take care of yourself. If you want to make more money, you take care of your family. You want to make even more money, look to make an impact in your community and then your state and then your country and then the world." And he said, look at the wealthiest people in the world right now. They're so wealthy, they've gone even beyond the world and they're trying to make an impact in space and in the universe. So the key to abundance ultimately is when you look at it and go, how can you make the biggest impact possible? And that was an interesting shift because when I was an internet marketer, it was all about how can I put money in my pocket? And that's about as far as it goes because you almost didn't care about the income. It was just very much like, you didn't care about the impact. It was very much like, okay, I sold somebody, move on to the next one. And then I studied under a mentor. His name is Marshall Thurber. He was actually Tony Robbins' mentor. And then somehow we managed to connect. And Marshall mentored under Bucky Fuller. And he shared the story with me about Bucky Fuller. And he says, do you know what it means when we talk about Darwin's survival of the fittest? And I'm like, Darwin's survival of the fittest? Yeah. I mean, isn't it like the biggest, baddest, toughest animal ends up like dominating and winning everything? And he said, that's what people often think. But what if I told you that that was absolutely incorrect? And you would fail miserably in the business world if you took that approach. I said, well, Marshall, where are we getting at here? And he said, if you look at the way lions as an example, the way that works, the king of the jungle, he just kind of lays there and the pride comes and they make the kill and they bring the food to him and they feed him and they conspire all around him to make sure he gets fed and he's healthy and so forth. The reason why they do that is because when somebody comes in and provides a threat to that pride, the lion will put his life on the line to go ahead and protect the pride. He said, what's really going on is that pride realizes that lion aids to their survival. It gives the pride everything they need to survive and live this, abundant life as a lion would. The same thing happens in business. And the way that works in business is when you add as much of an impact and transformation into others people's lives as much as possible, what happens is they reward you in other ways. They reward you with loyalty. They reward you with referrals. They reward you in all different types of ways because by your simple survival, you're helping them become richer, find more love, get healthier, feel more confident, be better about themselves, whatever that might be. So the key to even that business survival goes all the way back to even what I mentioned earlier from Demartini. Everything keeps coming back to change your focus around impact. Bigger impact, bigger rewards. But you got to let go of the rewards part. You got to believe that, through impact and growing a business intelligently, and as you make that impact, it will come. But you can't sit there and being like, I just did something for you. Now you got to do it for me because there's just a little bit of it's not as authentic.
I find that literally the hardest part because it's never the way we think it is, and it never comes to us the way we think it does. And then we
No.
sit here and we go, well, I have bills to pay, and I've done all these really good things, and I've done all this pro bono stuff, and and I've been helping people and I've been making an impact but I have to pay bills. So why is God, universe, spirit not providing me now with the money that I need to invest in X, Y, or Z? So how did you manage that in your career? Because I think this is a very challenging point in our personal development. And I'm so glad it's a former internet marketer who brings this lesson to say, yes, we do believe that good stuff comes to us, but there's a part of it where we do believe a little bit tit for tat. How did you manage to be patient?
Well, actually, when you get your message right, then you really don't have to be as patient as you think. Like, it actually becomes more of a message market match. It becomes more alignment. If it's taking you a while to receive the monetization benefit, then ultimately there's a message market mismatch in so many different variations. Because if you think about it, if you're really offering something that somebody needs in a way that resonates with them emotionally, that connects with them logically, and solves a pain and creates that impact, they immediately will look at you and be like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? This is awesome. Let's do it. When people are starting the business, oftentimes we rush to sell and we shortcut the process. We rush to sell and we don't spend enough time really understanding what is it that keeps my prospect up at night. And instead, what they do is they try to say, instead of my prospect, they go, what keeps everybody in the world up at night? And that is very, very broad. It's very, very broad. And they're like, well, everybody. And so there's never a bit of this connection. So, for the smaller companies, it's like, look, I'm going to pick one very niche, tight segment. I'm going to understand their problem and what's keeping them up at night. And I'm going to gear my message to that one particular group of people. And then you'll know that works because not only do they begin to come to you, but you close them much faster. And then as you do that more and more and more, then that allows you and affords you that ability to go a little bit wider and create a bigger and bigger and bigger impact. But, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson and all these big people that are now going into space, they didn't wake up one morning and say, you know what, here's the deal. We're going to go to Mars. They didn't do that. Just like a child doesn't all of a sudden go from out of the womb to then a full-on sprint. It doesn't work that way. Instead, we have to say, where do we ultimately start thinking, like, what do we want to do? But what is the first step I have to make today to get progress towards my journey? You can't shortcut the process. You have to be able, there are steps, logical steps you have to take. Yeah, be clear about where do you want to go and have the discipline and the patience to understand that this is a journey for you and you still have to take the steps. And just as a child doesn't all of a sudden go from, crawling to standing up one day and walking. A child learns to walk by then falling. And so they fall and they go, okay, that didn't work. Let me try something. Oh, that didn't work. And it just kind of keeps going that way. And through the falling that they learn to stand, and then progressively that they learn to run. But if we look at the evolution of humans from child to then adult, our entire process, our entire life is based on challenge, reward, challenge, reward, challenge, reward, challenge, reward. And so when you go through this business and you face the challenge, at that moment of the challenge, like the world in general says, oh, failure is bad. Like that's I think works against you in so many ways when you take that approach. Instead, if you look at it, every time you have that challenge and you say to yourself, why could this be the best thing in the world to happen for me right now? And you go, okay, whoop, that didn't work. Why? It didn't work. What is that a symptom of? Yeah, and then you start looking at what could that be a symptom of? I mean, we have so many clients that come to us, and the first things I often say is, I need more leads, right? I need more leads. In fact, I had 2 conversations this morning with business owners that said to me, I need more leads. And I said, oftentimes when somebody comes and they say, we need more leads, that's a symptom of something else. Let's ask ourselves a better question. Better questions get better answers. So the question is, why aren't you getting more leads? And let's actually pull that blanket back a little bit and let's look at all the things that are impacting your ability to capture those leads and see what's really going on here. And in both situations, the light bulbs went like boom. Both of them realized they didn't even have to do as much as they thought they did. In fact, they didn't have to do anything more. They had to fix one problem each. And that in of itself would help them escape from that founder's trap and begin to get more of what they've been looking for right along.
But you said something very much about the impact. I want to go back to that. And you and I, we had a conversation as we were prepping for this interview, this podcast interview, where you had said that you are really that gratitude is one of your main drivers. And the way you talk really suggests to me that you're using spiritual laws, that you're using scientific laws, physics laws. And I know Joe Demartini is all about that. Do you want to give us some sort of like framework on how you arrive at this, I want to say, insane clarity with which you speak?
Um, well, how I arrived at it was simply by accident. And it was,
Not helpful.
well, I mean, let's just say when I say it happened by accident, I hope none of your viewers have to go through what I went through.
Okay, tell us the story, please.
So through life, there's these ups and downs. And people will often tell me I've hit rock bottom. And I never understood what rock bottom meant until I got there. And then I realized when you're at the point in your life when you no longer want to be here on this earth, that is in fact rock bottom. You can't get much lower than that. That is rock bottom. And there was a point many years ago where unfortunately I was in that stage. And I wasn't going to do anything to hurt myself, but I was in the car and I'm driving and I found myself saying this little bit of a prayer that somebody would just hit me head on and be done with it. Then I wouldn't have to be experiencing this pain any longer. And it wasn't during that same time, during that same day, I got home and I just caught myself saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I didn't know why. And one part of my brain is going, are you smoking the wacky tobacco? What is going on here? Why are you saying thank you? This makes no sense. And on the other side of my brain, it's saying, no, this is serving a purpose. This is the best thing that could happen for you. And there's the logical, and then there's some other thing going on that I have no control over that is still putting me in this place of gratitude. And we can come up with all these maybe spiritual or other reasons why that might have happened. And to be honest, I don't know, and I don't pretend to know. All I do know is what happened. And that was, there was this overwhelming pressure to be grateful. And it was later in life where I came across Demartini. And then Demartini explained it to me that gratitude is the only center emotion. That we have our extremes on both sides. You have love, you have hate, but then gratitude is right in the middle, and so be it. And the more grateful you can be, the more powerful you can be, because that keeps you centered instead of being on an extreme. And I realized that by living in this place of gratitude, that, when things are elated and go super, super well, just being in gratitude, it allows me to see the constraints and the potential challenges that could swing things the other way. So, you don't want to just all of a sudden just stay in this place of bliss and optimism and believe that it's a straight line up and it's never going to turn around. You want to be able to prepare for, what is it that I'm not seeing right now? And you're not being pessimistic. You're just being open-minded. And then, it's the same thing. Like you're going out and you go for a boat ride in the ocean. You want to be able to just pay attention to the weather, because if a storm is coming, I probably want to make sure that I'm near land so that just in case, I'm safe. But on the flip side, everybody has their challenges. We have economics. Today we have AI. There's political issues. This other stuff. In these moment of challenges, you also need to be able to ask, why could this be the best thing in the world that happened to me? Because then you can see all an abundance of opportunities. And it's that same moment during COVID when everybody thought the worst was going on, that even in the hardest hit industries in the world, we had our clients, 87% of our clients had the best year they've ever had in the hardest hit industries in the world. When competitors were going out of business and everybody said it was impossible to turn this around, travel, restaurant, didn't matter. They had the best years ever. And they came back and said, Charlie, if you told me this during the time, I would have thought you were crazy. But looking back, it was the greatest gift that could have ever happened to us, was in the moment of biggest despair.
And I want to really point out something here, which I think is very specific to you. And I talk about these things all the time. But the way you articulate it is that you were using the law of polarity while you were in gratitude. And that I've never seen, because you said that when you're in it, you purposely look for the opposite, the polar opposite of what you're experiencing. So you have the despair, but then you say, where's the opportunity in this? Are you doing this consciously, or is this just something that evolved and it just works for you?
In the beginning, maybe it felt a little bit more forced, right? Because it was just something that Demartini really helped to shape in perspective. And even beforehand, when that event was going on, I kept saying, thank you. And why is this happening for me? That's when I kind of opened my mind to it. And I had my doubts that really in moments of challenge that there was going to be a reward. But now I've gone through this so many different times.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, never had a quote unquote real job. And I've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs all around the world. So it's like, you see it once, then it's like, maybe that was an accident. You see it a couple times. Oh, that's pretty neat. You see it hundreds, if not thousands of times, you suddenly realize it's no longer a coincidence, that this is in fact just the way it is. So now I'm totally unemotional. I don't look at it like I got to look at the bad thing. I got to look at the good thing. I don't look at it that way. I'm unemotionally attached to it. Instead, I just look at it for it is what it is. It's not good. It's not bad. It's different. It's just is what it is. I was interviewed on the NASDAQ, and the person behind the camera, the interviewer, said to me, I read in your book that you love a bad economy. Help me understand. What do you mean you love a bad economy? And I said, well, there's no such thing as a good or a bad economy. They're just different economies, and different economies require different strategies. It's just the thing is that most people look at it as a good or bad, and they use the same strategies for both type of economies. And so in a quote unquote bad economy, it's the easiest time for a strategic entrepreneur to capture more market share and grow their business because everybody else has retreated and they're waiting for things to pass. But different strategies require different results, just different environments. And so that's kind of the way that we look at it. Different situations are just different. It's not good or bad. Like nothing is good or bad. It's just, it is. It's just, it is, right?
You know, I really like that lack of judgment of what we are experiencing, and instead, because it takes also away the why me question or the why now question, or how could, this have happened? One question comes up for me here is, do you think that business or the way business is done, and there's a reason why our show is for founders of the future, is there a pivotal moment in change right now the way business is done, or is this just a wave?
Well, I mean, there's significant way, and actually, one thing just came to me. I just want to address real quick, and I want to get to that if I may. If you look at the way that most people approach business, it's very much like the check engine light that goes off in the car. They look at the check engine light and they go, "Oh, that's bad. That's bad. The check engine light went off. That's bad." And so, if it was up to them, they would just press a button and get rid of the check engine light and then pretend that everything's good. But actually, if you look at business like the check engine light, let's say a client left. If all of a sudden a client left, you could look at that as a check engine light. The check engine light is saying, hey, there is something going on with it that caused that client to leave. Maybe it was a broken process, an employee who inadvertently had a bad experience or miscommunication or whatever it might be. That's the check engine light. Let's do some investigation to figure out what caused that client to surprisingly leave so that we can fix it and continue onwards. And so that's sort of like those things, those moments in our lives, those are check engine lights. We have to step back and think, why did this happen? And what lesson is that teaching me to continue to move on and grow from this? Mm-hmm. Now, to answer your other question about like what's happening today and the world and changing and whatnot. Well, I mean, there are so many things going on, but I think probably the greatest thing that's happening right now is AI. And AI is disrupting every business and every industry. And if you don't think that your business is disrupted, you're looking in the wrong places, because every single company, purpose, everything has been disrupted. all the way across the board. One of the more obvious things that I'm seeing, and there are many different ways, but one of the most obvious ways that I'm seeing, if you think of Sora, Sora, which came out several months ago, ChatGPT turned around and they're like, here's how you can make these fake AI videos that appear super real. And so what happened was people were so excited for a couple days. They started creating these videos. They wanted to be first in line so they could create these videos that looked real but were actually fake. And then in our human experience, we turn around and we're looking at this on social media and we go, oh my gosh, look at this. There was a storm that happened in the Caribbean islands and this shark is swimming in the parking lot. That's crazy. How did that happen? And then you're like, hey, mom, hey, dad, hey, spouse, hey, this and that. Look what happened. And you found out that it's fake. And now you feel like you're an idiot. You got duped. And so what happened was that experience now sits strong. And now you begin to look at all the other things that are being created. And you look at all the videos and you're like, is that real? Or is that fake? You look at content that people are putting out. Is that really what they believe? Or is that AI that put it out there? Now you're jumping on a phone call and you're going, is this really a human on the other side? Or am I talking to a bot? And so what we're already seeing and what is continuing to build as an advantage is authenticity. Authenticity. I'm a huge fan of AI. I believe everybody needs to be able to use and leverage AI. And if you don't, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. However, do not lose your authenticity. Do not turn around and if you gave ChatGPT little instruction and you put it out there and you're like, this is me and this is what I believe and this is this, that's inauthentic. If you create these videos and whatnot that you're trying to like these, this drives me nuts. You talk about internet marketers, these ad platforms right now that are like, hey, you can turn around and you can create fake influencer ads and you can run it out there with AI to make people believe that a real human is loving your product and, using it. And you can dupe all these people out there to buy your stuff. Do it. And tons of these internet marketers are jumping in and spending money and they're like, this is the best thing in the world. And eventually the FCC will regulate it. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, enough is enough. Like, we have to be authentic.
I will say that I believe that your assessment is what I'm finding is impact-driven founders is to provide the framework and to help people to understand that people are not craving more fake stuff. People are craving real connections and community and experiences.
Yes.
And if we can focus on that and we say we are utilizing everything else as a tool, it's not the Hail Mary. You are the Hail Mary. But you're using these tools. And I'm on the board of directors of Women in Technology Hollywood. And we really talk about this all the time because people get so nervous and afraid of jobs and whatever. Yeah, a lot of stuff will change. But the one thing that AI cannot, and certainly not at this point, do is create human interaction. And I'm not seeing any robots going to dinner together, driving in a robot car, and that helping the economy in any way, shape, or form. So that's ridiculous, right? So we will have some sort of commerce at some point. So, Charles, for somebody who now has listened to this and said, this is a guy I need to reach out to, tell us where we can find you. What do you do? How do you help your client? And who is your ideal client?
Awesome. So predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. That's where they can find us and learn more about what we do. We work with founders and CEOs in their teams doing anywhere from 250,000 to all the way up to, tens of millions of dollars. And we help them escape that founder's trap. And that founder's trap exists when lead generation depends on word of mouth and referrals, when sales depends only on your ability to close, when all operations depend on everybody in your team tugging your ear and being like, hey, what do I do? Can you help me? Or even client delivery expects your sign off. So, we help them escape that founder's trap so they can continue to grow and thrive and create predictable month after month growth. That's what we've done for the past 16 plus years. And after over 1,000+ entrepreneurs, I think we might have picked up a thing or two.
You figured it out. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was really great conversation. I feel like we only barely scratched the surface, and there's a lot more that we can talk about. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
And that is it for us for today. So now you know my rant about internet marketers now has to end, because now I've been proven the opposite, that even in that world, there are significant changes, which is what we've talked about on this show so many times. Please check out Charles and take a look at what he does, in the hopes that this will help you to be a founder of the future that makes the impact that you came here to do. We thank you. We thank you for your time. We thank you for being you. We thank you for being here. And if it resonates, share it with one other person. And until I see you again, goodbye. That's it for this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show, Founders of the Future. If you're done playing small and ready to build the future on your terms, subscribe, share, and help us reach more trailblazers like you. And if you're serious about creating, growing, and scaling a business that's aligned with who you are, schedule your Uncovery session at uncoverysession.com. Lead with vision. Move with purpose. Create your future.